Welcome to Leaving Nothing to Chance, your go-to podcast where we bring you insights from some of the most influential voices in small business and personal development. Each week, we dive deep into conversations with top thought leaders, authors, and business moguls from around the world, sharing their secrets to success and strategies for growth. Tune in for exclusive content that will inspire, motivate, and equip you to take your journey to the next level. This is Leaving Nothing to Chance.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode, another exciting young entrepreneur that we're going to be talking to today, who deals in the AI world, the IT world, the internet commerce world, Mr. Chris Januszewski from Austin, Texas, by way of Europe way back, right?
That's correct. Yeah, thanks for having me on, John.
You started life in Switzerland?
No, so I started life in the UK.
In the UK. In the UK. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
started out over there, moved around a few times, lived in Belgium, went over to California, and somehow found myself in Austin, Texas now. So I'm a Texan now.
It is funny how Austin's become such a hotbed of the AI world and the internet commerce business, and how big it's becoming like Silicon Valley, but the Texas version of it.
Yeah, we've got a nice tech scene here. That's one reason I moved over. So I was always in the tech space in California. I was in Mountain View and Palo Alto, working primarily in e-commerce. And I met my wife over there, and I think we always knew we'd leave the Bay Area because it was very expensive. And my family lives in the UK. My wife's live in Nicaragua. And to even get a house where our families can come and stay was, you'd have to break the bank. So we went traveling around the States. We enjoyed going to all different states. And I think the two places we landed on where we thought we could raise a family were Atlanta and Austin. And I got an opportunity with one of my partners at Walmart ShipStation. And it's one of those things. It worked out, and here I am.
Here you are. Oh, yeah. It's a great city. Love Austin. So let's talk a little bit about your podcast. You and I met through our mutual interest in being podcasters and appearing on podcasts. The Rebellious Times podcast. How long have you been doing that?
So I've been doing that. I think we launched the first episode maybe 4 months ago. So I'm still fairly new. And it's interesting when I meet somebody like you who's very experienced in the space, and I look on your YouTube and I see how many subscribers and how many likes and comments and things. I think, okay, I can definitely learn something from John.
Thank you for saying that. And yeah, it hasn't been an easy journey, but I would say a worthwhile one, because I met great people like yourself, and everybody I've interviewed, I've built some sort of a relationship with. Even if we never do any business, it's, hey, I got a friend, I'm going to be in Austin. Hey, Chris, what are you doing for lunch? Even if that's all it ever gets to. But it is amazing how many people you meet from so many different walks of life and experience. I highly suggest people start a podcast if they're so inclined. You're also, your full-time role is as an entrepreneur, as the founder of Rebel Commerce Solutions. How long ago did you found the company?
Yeah, so I've been in the corporate world for quite a while. I decided, like many people last year, many people that I work with in partnerships or within companies in the tech space, after a while, you kind of want to have a bit of a change. The whole corporate environment, I think I hit a ceiling there. And I think I was a little bit narrowly focused on specifically strategic partnerships with marketplaces. And I've worked in a marketplace. I've done this job for a company before. And so I thought, can I do more than this? Can I work on different interesting projects? And so I dropped out probably, I think it was July last year, sat back, decompressed a bit. It's amazing how the whole corporate world indoctrinates your way of thinking. Naturally, I thought, oh, better find another job, speak to everybody in my network. And then thought, no, you left because you wanted to try something different. And it's a scary thing to step out of it. So you step out and there's no income. I've got a wife, I had 2 children back then. We've now got a 3rd child, which we had back in February. So we're building up a little squad here, a little 5-a-side soccer team. And so I spent the back end of 2024 doing a bit of soul searching, testing a few projects. I was never not working, but I built a print on demand e-commerce site. And I thought, no, I don't want to do that. And the business case didn't make sense when I got feedback on it. I explored franchising. Because I thought, okay, we're in this world where AI is really changing life and work. There will be many jobs that will be disappearing. Where could I keep myself in a place where people are going to need me? And I thought home services is very different than what I've done before, but I was looking at a franchise for cleaning pools and repairing pools. Okay, because that's something you probably couldn't just configure Chat GPT to do, right? You couldn't do it through a prompt. You need somebody to go out there and make an assessment, and you're probably safe there for a few more years than if you're working in a software company, let's say. But again, I halted on that at the last minute. I thought, it's not really me. And in Austin, it's so hot in summer. I couldn't see myself going out there and spending servicing 10 pools outside in the 110-degree heat. So we crossed that one off the list. So I sat back and I thought, everybody says, you want to start a business, what's your passion? And I think I spend most of my time with my family. I can't start a business for my family. I do Muay Thai, although I don't do it as much now. I've got the little one in tow, but didn't really want to build a business around that. I've always loved cars. But again, I had a car business in the UK. That was fun, but not really what I wanted to do. And then I realized everything I've ever done in corporate has always been helping small businesses. And I love the concept of somebody being able to start a business, having that independence, being able to build it up themselves, being able to provide for the family, being able to potentially grow it into a unicorn, or just build something that sustains you, whether it's an e-commerce business or having a physical shop. I grew up in a family business in the UK, so my summer holidays were always spent at the factory, firing rivets at the machinists and winding everybody up. But you've got that mindset. So I decided, right, I've been in the tech world. AI is something that I should try and attach myself to somehow. I should try and get involved. So I decided I would build a business as a growth partner to tech startups, so software startups. And I started with trying to identify prospects that were doing interesting things with AI to solve problems through AI. And also, this would help me build up my knowledge of the space as well. And so that's how I founded Rebel Commerce Solutions. And I work with founders, and it's interesting because this week is Tech Week in Austin. And so I went over to the Capital Factory yesterday, and the head of the Capital Factory, Graham Dougherty, he did a fantastic presentation. And at one point, he got onto the ability to craft an 8-second pitch for your business. And what he said is, if you got the opportunity to speak to an investor or somebody that you think might influence your business, and the doors closed on the elevator and you had 8 seconds to get to the top, if you need to be able to give a pitch in that time, and he's going to do one of two things. On one side, he'll say, thank you, nice to hear what you do, and go and get a coffee or to the toilet. On the other side, he'll stop outside the elevator and ask you a question. And so it's really resonated with me yesterday. And having a business over these last 7-8 months is constant iteration, like constantly changing my focus and my processes and incorporating new aspects into it. On the fly came up just my pitch yesterday. So what I do with Rebel Commerce Solutions is I help startups transition from founder-led sales and marketing to automated systems.
And how are you using AI to do that without getting too technical? I'm a founder. I started selling widgets here in Dallas, and all of a sudden the business starts to expand nationally, let's say. So I've got to get into e-commerce, AI, advertising, promotion, social media, all those things. What do you tell me? What's the best advice that you can tell me and guide me? And what can you do, okay, as a company to help me as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think, and from my own discovery work on AI, and also learning a lot from the founders that have been on my podcast, some people doing really incredible things, some things that go way over my head, and I do my best to stay on track. But how I'm approaching AI and how I think a lot of companies should approach it is AI creates an opportunity for high levels of automation. So ultimately, that can result in reducing the cost of headcount. It's a terrible thing to say, but that's what it is. And so there's a spectrum of automation, right? So if you think, I run cold email campaigns for my clients. And so anything from crafting messages to crafting responses to automating steps can be layered in through AI. And there's a mix of some tools you don't need AI for that. Some tools will automate certain steps anyway. But there's a whole, and it's one of those things being right now focusing on servicing clients, finding clients, servicing clients. But I've got my eye on the fact that the winner in this space will be the one that literally automates end-to-end a full sales and marketing system and sells it as a package. So I play with it as a tool called NA to N. And you can hook into all sorts of different software there, build workflows and automate as you go. And it's a lot of fun, and it's incredible like what you can do with it. I'm not necessarily an expert, but it's, if you have a business and you want to leverage AI and you want to build automations, there are plenty of people out there in different verticals that will build these automated workflows for you. So you understand your business, you understand the step, you understand the flow. If you can communicate that to them, they can build out these workflows and really drive a ton of efficiency and give you your time back.
I dealt with one company this week that is going to a IVR system, for example, along the lines of what you're talking about, where it's okay, that will eliminate some jobs, unfortunately, at some point, but it seems to be, hey, it's 24 hours a day. You don't have to pay somebody at 3 o'clock in the morning if they're calling in from a foreign market or whatever. It's the times that we're living in. How do you help to scale a software business? What's one of the ways that you guys can help to scale, to your point? So you got a client, he's gone from here to here, but he needs to go to here.
Yeah, what we often see is, say it's a startup, maybe 4, 5, 6 people. Generally, in the space I'm in, they're all technical. So they're all either engineers or product people. But many of them have, got MBAs. They've got a lot of exposure to the business side as well. They've got good coaching and they have strong networks. So they may have their own network through the school they were at or through one of the VCs that funds them or the angels that fund them. They will work to exhaust this network of contacts to find customers to test the product and to actual active customers to sign up and use the product. But this is a big time suck on CEOs, right? CEOs got a lot of other things to do to scale the business. And in terms of businesses that are looking to get through rounds of funding, pre-seed or seed, up to Series A, the VCs want to know what's the go-to-market strategy, right? And so in the early days, it's fine that the founder is hustling and being creative and using the network. But to start introducing your first SDR, you need processes in place. You need the right messaging. You need the right systems. You need them all hooking together. You need to be able to monitor the results, build the KPIs, and then iterate on the systems and keep improving it, with the ultimate goal of finding customers, finding qualified customers that pay. And so that's what I do.
And along those lines, okay, how do you increase engagement to do that so that the business that's come to you, that you're working with, that you're consulting with, how do you help them to improve engagement online, offline? Probably online, I would imagine, with what you do, but maybe offline too. Do they use billboard advertising in the city that they're in addition, or anything offline, or is it all online? And how?
Yeah, it depends on the type of business and their needs and who their customers are. So I was always in tech partnerships. So I'm always been very comfortable at building out partner programs where that's appropriate to drive referrals to your business. On the sales side, to be able to actually find prospects, communicate with them, close them. I don't necessarily do the closing myself, but I will train their team to do that, or I'll train the CEO. So I'll put systems in place for lead gen, whether it be automated cold email or automated LinkedIn. So then there's the marketing side. So on digital marketing side, I have a full suite of solutions. And we're still, even though everyone seems to say SEO is dead, SEO is definitely not dead. Google still drives a lot of traffic that converts. Obviously, the LLMs are gathering a market share of searches as well now. And so the SEO that I offer is an AI-based solution as well. We call it generative engine optimization. And so we will position businesses to drive leads organically through Google or through ChatGPT and Perplexity and these other LLMs. And then if it's paid search, social content marketing, it really depends what fits the business in terms of the stage that they're at and what they're trying to achieve.
Now, most of your businesses, are they startup incubators, or are they already out there and coming back and going, okay, we need a rebranding or a re-engagement type of situation, or both?
They're generating revenue. I tried working with a couple of companies that were pre-revenue and it didn't necessarily make sense from a model. So there has to be some money there to be able to pay so we can generate a return on investment. If you've nothing to invest, we can't generate a return on investment. So it's startups, it's B2B, SaaS, also work with e-commerce businesses. Initially, I was in e-commerce for 15 plus years. And I thought I'll start by maybe not focusing on e-commerce so I can learn a new vertical, right? The B2B SaaS space. But I've naturally gravitated back to e-commerce as well. So I've got e-commerce clients too. And I'm comfortable working with local businesses as well. So there's a page on my site that's dedicated to Austin, and I offer certain benefits for local businesses because I love to support the community and help the more traditional brick and mortar businesses try and compete and try and leverage online and be part of this online and AI revolution to fight with the big boys, the big retailers that keep pushing everybody out.
You did something very clever there. I was on your website last night, and I think that's very clever that even though obviously e-commerce is a worldwide business, doesn't matter if you're in Austin or Tibet for what you do, but the fact that you also are reaching out to that local business community where you live, where people still, there's still a benefit to being able to shake hands and have a cup of coffee with somebody and look across the table and saying, especially because I'm always on the entrepreneurial side. I've always started businesses or joined small businesses that need me to grow it. And it's like, I want to talk to somebody that's live sometimes. In the city I'm in, it says, hey, here's my expectations, here's my needs. Tell me what they are. And you're not 6 time zones away. So I think that's very clever what you did there with your website.
Yeah, that was almost a personal desire to support local Austin businesses. And I was in partnerships. I'm a very social person. I don't know if I'm an extrovert or an introvert. Maybe I'm a bit of both. But I always love being in the mix. I love going to trade shows in Las Vegas and shop talk and internet retail. I would really thrive in there. I love talking to people I don't know. I love learning about people, different people. I always have since I've been a kid. And then COVID hit, bam. And I'm sat at home and I'm on Zoom and I'm not getting that interaction. And that affected me quite a lot, my personality type, especially I was new in Austin. So we moved to Austin January 2020, COVID hit in the Feb.
Hmm.
Then I think we were sent home from ShipStation probably March. So I just moved to Austin. I was looking forward to being with my teammates and my boss and everything in the office. Wonderful culture at ShipStation. Then all of a sudden I was at home and I wasn't able, it was difficult to meet people. It was difficult to make friends and get into the community. And yeah, in starting my own business, I thought, okay, what are the things I want out of life? And one of the things I want to do in my day-to-day job is be in the mix and be with people. And so to be able to speak to local Austin businesses and help them, it means a lot to me personally.
It's become such a great market too. It's Silicon Valley, Texas version.
Silicon Hills, I think we call.
Yeah, so Silicon Valley with the barbecue. Let's talk about podcasting for a minute. So you've jumped into the podcasting arena, and I have a lot of thoughts on podcasting now, doing it for 6 years. And I'm watching the growth, and it's very interesting. Like last year, about this time, there was a number that came out. It was 3.7 million English speaking podcasts. That number's just been revised to 4.3 million, which means there's another roughly 500,000 people like you and I out there that are saying, okay, let me do a podcast. So here's my question. How are you using the podcast to grow your company, grow your user base, okay, and also to expand your vertical, if you will, of other business people maybe in your world that are bringing you products or services that are saying, hey, Chris, when we get offline here, let's talk about XYZ.
Yeah, I initially started the podcast. It's one of my sales motions, one of my sales methods that I work with clients on is to use a podcast. I run cold email campaign, run outreach campaigns to prospects that I think potentially are fit for so B2B SaaS businesses. I'll do a quick call with them in advance with the goal of getting them on the podcast. Some of them are not necessarily a fit for my business, maybe the business to consumer or something that's not a fit. But if I think the audience will find it interesting, I'll do the podcast. And then there are others where I think this is a great fit. They've got the right profile. Maybe they've got some gaps in sales and marketing. Maybe they want to get to the next level. And so we'll have a conversation. I'll softly introduce it. If there's interest, great, we'll go to a discovery call. If there's not, that's totally fine. I've got great content. And then there are others now that where I reach out to them, I think I actually really am enjoying doing this podcast thing. And I really want to give varied and unique content to the users. Even though I don't have a huge following yet, I get some really interesting guests on. So this week we published episode 18, and that's with Joe Reddix. And Joe Reddix, for 60 years, he's been at the forefront of any new tech that comes out, helping large corporations and government divisions leverage this tech. Right now, he's on top of quantum computing. So we've done a podcast on quantum computing and how that merges with AI to really drive data processing to incredible scale. And some of the revelations on that podcast to me are just fantastic. And again, it's not always easy because I'm not a super technical person, but I can hang in there and I can guide somebody to share their story of what may be quite complex business models and technical solutions, but in a way that somebody's not technical can digest, i.e. me. And so that's how I position my podcast now. And I always like to throw in a human element. I don't just want to talk about work and customers and the pitch. That's part of it. But I also want to get to know the person, know their background, know some interesting things about them, their views on life, even getting onto modern I don't want to say I don't want to steer too heavily into politics, but some of the challenges everybody's facing, we're all facing in life.
What's interesting too, what I found is not only have I built great contacts, but also I've shared some of those contacts where it's like your show will fit a couple of people that I've interviewed where I'll be like, hey, I'll be sitting here on a Saturday afternoon watching college football for a few minutes and my brain's always working on business. I could be watching something, but I'm not paying attention. And I'd be like, hey, you know what? This guy would be good on Chris's show. Let me introduce them. Or this woman. Or vice versa. Your show would be great. You should be interviewed by so-and-so. Because that's one of the things I found is building this network community, if you will, of people that are like-minded, entrepreneurial enough that they go, and hey, let me go through the effort of buying a good camera and a good computer and a good microphone and all that kind of stuff and put myself out there, which sometimes take flack for doing it, by the way. You'll get a few dissenters here and there that for whatever reason, and I will say, where's your podcast? But anyway, it's besides the point. So that's one of the benefits that I've found with it over the last few years is just meeting people. I've done these things wow, I just did one in Bali. I did I did two in Australia last week and one in New Zealand a couple of weeks ago. So sometimes it's international or sometimes it's right down Highway 35 in Texas. So let's get to the next question. So let's talk about growing a business now versus maybe a few years ago. You mentioned COVID, for example, and you were in transition in your life at that point, but you've been in business a long time. How do you see business now versus business then in a couple of respects? Number one, the fact that so many people are working from home in so many different fields. And obviously they need technology to do that. Nobody's going to pay them. You're working from home, but how do you prove it, right? That's one question. And the other question is, do you find that people are more engaged now or less engaged after the whole COVID nightmare?
I think that there's a lot of benefits to working from home in terms of I can drop my kids off at school, I can pick them up every day. So you've got that flexibility, but I'm not stuck in traffic an hour to work and an hour back, or in California, 2 or 3 hours each way. Some people drive crazy commutes in California. Yeah, when you have a family, that's a massive no-no. So it's a real blessing to be able to work from home. In terms of output, I don't think I probably work more remotely than I did when I was in an office. In an office, it's full of distractions of people asking you questions. But in terms of the ability to get to know the culture of a company, to understand their processes, I was always really bad at following processes in the large corporations I worked at. It just wasn't my thing. I was more, all right, let's get going, very task focused. And so I'd always get pulled up in my reviews on, you didn't follow this process or this value or something like that. So yeah, I think maintaining culture really struggles. I think at a middle management to senior level, I think people are fine, people are responsible, but you've also got to check in on people because it gets lonely. It gets lonely being on your own. It gets lonely not having breaks, not seeing anybody all day, not having that detachment from work where you have a ride home, you listen to the radio and you got a clear cutoff. And so sometimes that can feed into family life as well, because you get off your last call of the day. It's been an intense one. Son comes and asks you a question that you weren't ready for, or can I have some candy? And you snap back because you're in the same mode you were in. So the ability to cut off and become human again, become a real dad and a family person again is a skill. And sometimes I'll sneak off into the bedroom and just lie down for 5 minutes, and then the kids will see I've done. I'm trying to just reset and go back in, but they'll see and they'll see it as an opportunity to play or whatever. But I think the real challenge for the work from home thing is for people just starting out in work. It's, in my mind, it's an absolute disaster. So you finish college, or you might not go to college. You've learned some trade, and then you apply for a job. You do an interview online. Maybe you go and meet somebody, in the office once at first, but then you're working from home. Your laptop arrives in the mail, and then you're sat there You might be on Slack and make some friends on Slack, but it is nothing like walking the corridors and meeting, chatting with the boss, or chatting with somebody who's done your role for a while, or somebody, has really deep understanding of the business and the customers. There is so much you won't catch and so much learning that you won't get that you're used to when you're in the office. Yeah, it's if I could advise somebody starting out to avoid it and to get into the office, even if they earn a bit less, I think that's a sensible option.
So what do you've got, I know you've got a baby and you've got a couple of youngsters. What are you telling them as far as the future? And let me give some context to that. The next generation is probably going to be 90% work from home or thereabouts, right? We are seeing some big buildings still built. NVIDIA is building a big building right here in Richardson where I live. But for the most part, we're seeing empty office spaces, right? Because people are working from home, and technology is only going to make that easier, frankly, and for companies to monitor to make sure they're getting value for the money that they're spending on people. But along that way, Chris, what are you telling your youngsters? Or what would you tell, let's say, a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old about getting ready for their life after school, be it after college, after high school? Like, how are you telling them to prepare for what's coming? Because this AI generation is the next generation. AI is here now, of course, but in the next generation, they're only going to know AI. This generation knew cell phones, for example. What are you
Yeah.
telling your kids or other young people to prepare themselves? What should they study? Okay, what should they spend their free time doing, as opposed to playing games, for example, on the internet? Like, how could they prepare themselves?
Yeah, that is the question. Me and my wife talk about that a lot. And our eldest son is in first grade now. He's a very smart kid. He's very advanced with his reading, with his math. And we wanted a school that's going to push him. And the school he's at doesn't necessarily push him, but he gets a lot of other things. It's a Catholic school, right? And so he's really taken to the religious aspect and he loves the values of that. Also the social aspect as well. Just being with your friends, playing with your friends. They have the little hierarchies and the little things they're into. They're into these little Labubu toys and things. Now, I don't know. We all had those things when we were at school, but I think that is extremely valuable. He learns the piano, he doesn't practice, so he's not advancing fast. I keep telling him to practice, but he's only 6. What are you going to do? But I think learning music, sports, I think is going to be really valuable. It's been valuable to me because you learn a lot from playing sports. I can go into that later. But when we're at home, we keep him off screens. So to actually get to watch some TV and watch Bluey and Bingo or Dr. Binocs or whatever he watches, he has to do some piano practice or do some things to earn it. We're not giving him iPads or anything like that. He does a ton of reading. He loves reading, so he just sits and reads. He does his little science projects, so we're getting science games and stuff. So he'll do that. In terms of the bigger picture, I think most of the stuff, and it's probably controversial to say this, but I think most of the stuff they teach them at school is bullshit anyway, in terms of preparing you for life, right? I think math is extremely important. I think English reading is very important, the ability to communicate. I think at some point, obviously, technology and working with AI will come into it, but he doesn't have to do that probably at least till middle school. I wouldn't want him to touch that. And then there's other things that I've got to teach me that because school doesn't, right? School doesn't teach you how to have a relationship, what you need to do to build a partnership with a wife or husband and to be able to stay married and to be able to get through rough times. It doesn't teach you that. It doesn't teach you how to have children. It doesn't teach you when you have children and you lose all your time, you can't do the things you were doing before and sacrifice everything, 95% of yourself for your family. It doesn't teach you how to manage that. School doesn't teach you how to manage your finances at all. And so that's why most of the United States is in debt. School doesn't teach you how to solve problems. It teaches you to remember. It teaches you to remember what's written. And so my focus is my son asks a lot of questions, my daughter too, and I make them think of the answer and I make them work through it. And I try and help them develop their own little processes and learn to think and learn to question everything as I'm doing. I've always done that since I've been a kid. And I think since COVID, I've done it a lot more. A lot of things that are taken as a given, I no longer think. So I think anything is up for grabs right now and that can get wild, but I think that's just the world we're living in.
Great, great. So in wrapping up, tell them where they can listen to the podcast and also how they can reach out to you if they're looking for some help with their business.
Yeah, so the podcast is on YouTube, Rebellious Times Podcast, also on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. And if you want to reach out to me, my site is rebelcommercesolutions.com. Fill in a form there, or you can catch me, Chris Januszewski. You might not be able to spell my name because it's not written on the screen. So probably best to go through the site. But if you look up Rebel Commerce Solutions on LinkedIn, you will find me there as well.
Great. Thanks so much, Chris. It's been a lot of fun, as always, and a lot of great information. And thanks so much, and continued good success with everything, buddy.
Thanks very much, John. I really appreciate it. And thanks so much.
Anytime.
Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to check back weekly for more exciting episodes. And don't miss Ink and Insight every Wednesday, where we celebrate iconic authors and dive into their impactful works.